Crashing to the floor, Jones's cane rattled in the still silence that followed. Smoke curled from the barrel of a gun. Defoe's lips curled in a crooked grin. With timid steps, Jones turned to look at Eli. Tears poured from his eyes. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. Looking down, Eli saw it. Blood seeping from just above Jones's heart.
No!
Diving forward, Eli reached to catch Jones as his muscles gave out, collapsing them to the floor. Pulling him close, Eli stared helplessly at his dying friend.
No, Jones! Come on! Jones, no! Jones, no! Not you too!
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Not you too. No, Jones, no. No, Jones.
A single breath escaped the professor's lips, floating away on the breeze. The iron smell of blood mixed with the wretched taste of gun smoke overwhelmed him. Tears blurred Eli's vision of the paling face of his mentor. Tremors shook his body as a single cry of anguish ripped forth from his throat. Holding Jones's lifeless body close, Eli leaned his head against the professor's wrinkled forehead.
Oh, unfortunate. I do hate having to kill people.
Scarlett burst forth from the doors behind her father. Skidding to a stop, she stared in horror at what she saw.
What did you do?
What needed to be done? He was weak and an inconvenience, so I got rid of him.
A glint of silver caught Eli in the eye. A gun lay hanging from the professor's cold hand. Fire roared to life in him. The fire of hate, anger, vengeance burning through his veins. The world around him went out of thought and mind. The only thing he could see was the demon standing before him. The thing that took everything away from him. Defoe. Gripping the gun, he whipped it around and squeezed the trigger.
No!
Defoe recoiled as the bullet ripped through his shoulder. Martin drew his own gun, aiming at Eli. In a flash, the gun went flying from his hands as Scarlett delivered a swift kick to his arm. Confusion and anger flashed across his face as he glared at his sister.
Traitor!
Diving at Scarlett, he struck out with his fist, catching her in her injured arm. Dodging his next strike, she dropped low and swept his legs out from under him, sending him crashing into a stack of crates.
Get them, you idiots!
3 men charged Scarlett. Swinging his aim around, Eli squeezed the trigger, catching one in the chest and sending him lifeless to the floor. A goon flew through the air, colliding with the remaining 2 attackers. Swinging from the engine of the train, Astrid raced to his side. Tears fell from her eyes as she brushed her hand against Jones's lifeless face.
You should have never gone looking for the truth. It's often disappointing.
Eli's heart skipped a beat as he found himself looking down the dark hole of a gun. Defoe's eyes rolled back as his body went limp, falling away to reveal Scarlett standing behind him. Several armed guards rushed onto the platform.
They've attacked the Chancellor.
Drawing their rifles, they spread out, surrounding them. Bullets ripped through the air, smashing lights, splintering boxes, and sending 2 men to the ground.
We've gotta go.
Gripping Eli by the arm, Astrid sprung up and yanked him away from the professor.
No, I won't leave him.
Eli, we have to go!
Don't let them escape.
Flicking up a fallen rifle with her foot, Scarlett snatched it from the air and sent round after round into the air, scattering the guards. Walter sent bullets flying as he ducked in and out of cover from the engine. Seeing that there was nothing to be done, Eli followed Astrid as they rushed towards the front of the train. Scarlett followed close in tow, stopping repeatedly to send the guards diving for cover as she unloaded her rifle. Jumping from the platform, Eli and Astrid threw themselves into the train engine, diving behind the thick metal walls as bullets ricocheted through the air. Walter ripped the couplings attaching the engine to the rest of the cars free. Yanking a lever back, the train lurched forward. Steam billowed from the smokestack as the train began to roll down the tracks. Chucking the empty rifle aside, Scarlett turned and sprinted down the last feet of the platform, launching herself at the accelerating train. Catching the rail of the cabin, she dangled precariously from the railing as the train sped from the station.
Walter, help!
Hesitating for a second, Walter gripped the scruff of her shirt and yanked her into the engine, throwing her against the wall.
What did you know?
Gasping for breath, Scarlett looked at Walter with fear in her eyes as he towered over her.
What are you talking about?
You're that demon's daughter, so tell me, what did you know?
Walt, we need to slow down!
Glancing at the window, they all saw the landscape flash by in a blur. Jumping to his feet, Eli looked out the forward window. A sharp curve in the tracks barreled towards them.
Walt, hit the brakes!
Where?
Too late!
Eli felt arms wrap around him, yanking him back as the train rocked to the side before flying from the tracks. Holding on tight to Astrid, they fell to the wall as the train smashed through tree after tree as it slid down the mountainside. Sharp pain shot through his skull as his head slammed into the cold metal wall. The world went black. The world shifted into focus in a mess of black, white, and gray. Snow drifted in through the shattered windows, sizzling on the hot coals that slumped in a mound from the furnace. Every muscle screamed at him as he pulled himself from the wreckage. Venom-like pain gripped his body as he collapsed on the biting cold snow. Coal and metal peppered the mountainside. Looking around, he only found trees tilted at wrong angles, leaning against their fellow trees. Reality settled in like a hammer smacking into his head. The torrent of emotions washed over him. Wisps of black mixed with falling snow as it gently fell to the earth. Rolling to one side, he caught sight of Scarlett's slender form shifting in the snow as she gazed into the darkened trees around them. Fighting back the agonizing pain, Eli rose to his feet and stumbled through the snow towards her.
Did you know?
I didn't know. He did it.
What did you know?
That he wanted to save the nation. That's all he ever said.
Did he send you after me?
Yes.
Leave.
What?
Flinching, she faced Eli. Tears wiped away the soot that covered her face.
I want you to leave.
But I didn't know anything. I didn't know who he was.
Just leave. I can't trust you. Not anymore.
But...
Leave!
Wrapping her arms tightly around her, she turned and shuffled towards the trees. Stopping just inside the circle of dim light, she turned to glance at him.
I didn't know.
Twisting back around, she disappeared into the darkened trees. The snow fell like blankets around her feet as she trudged through the mountainside. Echoing howls of wolves drifted along with the gust of wind that rattled the trees. The pale light of the moon peeked in and out from the shifting clouds, passing its silver beams across the mountain. Scarlett didn't know what to do, what to think, or where to go. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. A lie told by someone who was meant to guide and protect her. She thought she was doing something good. She thought she might have found people worth thinking twice about, but they were gone, leaving her all alone to carry the weight of her reality. Sharp pain shot up her foot as she jammed it against a log, hidden by the layers of snow. Stumbling forward, she fell face first into the crisp snow. Pulling herself from the ice surrounding, she felt the last flame of warmth inside her flutter out. Daggers of pain bit into her skin, slipping past the thin layers she wore. Anger flooded her veins as she succumbed to the frustration of her situation. She'd always had a plan, always knew what to do, but now she was lost alone in the woods with nowhere to go and no one to tell her what to do. Tears stung her eyes as she fell to her knees. She hated herself for being this way, for being weak. Her father's words thundered in her ears like an angry roar.
Emotions are the gate to weakness. Show too much and no one will ever take you seriously.
Plucking away the frozen tears that bit into her skin, Scarlett struggled to her feet, stumbling a few paces before collapsing against a tree. Pain like hot iron racked her body. She could feel her mind go numb, her legs weakening, her heart slowing. As her eyes fluttered closed, she noticed a glow coming from far away in the trees. As the world blurred around her, she dragged herself towards the light, stumbling through the trees. Yellow sparks floated up and away from a small outcrop of rock. Crawling to the edge, she peered over, looking into the alcove. She found a fire crackling and sparkling. Blades of green grass shifted in the warm breeze that passed through the sheltered space. Crawling to the flames, she collapsed on the soft grass, letting the heat soak into her ice skin. Fighting the overwhelming urge to close her eyes, she laid there, staring into the shifting colors of the fire. The reds and orange shifted into black as she slipped away into the throes of sleep. In a blink, she awoke. Soft wool threads bound together into an intricately decorated blanket were draped over her. Sliding her hand down her side, she grasped the hilt of her knife as her eyes scanned the space around her.
Sleep well.
Springing up, Scarlett slipped out her knife, swinging it back and forth until she saw the hunched, rugged monk.
Saga?
Hello, Scarlett.
How are you here? How did you find me?
I am a man of many talents, and it is easy to find those who wander through this world.
What does that even mean?
Well, it means...
Never mind. Forget I asked.
The moment of adrenaline passed, and she slumped to the ground.
What are you doing all the way out here?
I came to help a friend.
Who?
You idiot.
I don't need any help.
Are you serious? You're alone and freezing in the middle of the woods, and your entire world has been turned upside down.
I'm doing just fine. I don't need your help.
Those who often need the most help are the most reluctant to accept it, because by doing so, you must show your brokenness to others.
I'm not broken.
How blind you cottons are!
I'm not a cotton.
But you are! Your father is Alexander Cotton, son of Joseph Cotton.
My father is Wilfred Defoe, not Alexander.
Wilfred Defoe is the name of a murderer and a madman. Alexander Cotton is the name of a bright young man who was brilliant and too ambitious for his own good.
How do you know all this?
Because I was once his friend, and we were like brothers. We grew up together, and I watched as his own greed and ambition destroyed him.
If you knew all this time, why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you tell us? You knew everything when we showed up at your door, and yet you did nothing.
I knew of you and your mission, but I did not know you. Now I do, and I see much of your father in you. You are strong and determined. Things do not easily affect you, and you have trained yourself to bottle everything up until no one is looking. You pine for your father's praise and affection, but you have gotten very little, so you have turned your face and heart to stone, locking away everything that makes you human.
Frustration burned in her chest. A shriveling, crawling feeling came over her, like she wanted to escape from her body and disappear into the night, for she knew his words were true.
So what if that's true? It doesn't matter. The fact that I've lied to everyone I've ever known and done terrible, unforgivable things in the name of a lie.
A lie too often told, that we must sacrifice ourselves for those who would not sacrifice anything for you. Scarlett, we often find ourselves in relationships that seem like the most wonderful thing, yet it is not till we take a step back that there is no relationship, only slavery. Slavery to the narcissistic whims of others. And we cannot change what we did or what they did. We can only change ourselves.
Why are you telling me this?
Because I failed to save your father, and I want to save you. I also want to save your friends.
I don't have any friends.
I think you do. Walter could have easily left you to fall off that train, and in his own way. He had every right to, but he didn't. Eli could have assumed you knew and let his anger take the better of him, but he didn't. He gave you a chance to say your side of the story.
Yeah, right before he told me to get lost.
To be fair, you had been spying on him since you met.
Saga's words danced around in her head like the flames dancing in the fire. She knew he was right.
So what do I do?
Follow me.
Springing to his feet, the scrappy monk hobbled out of the alcove, vanishing into the white haze of snow that fell outside. Stretching out her legs, Scarlett pushed herself to her feet and followed after the old man. The snow fell gently around them as they marched through the forest.
Where are you taking me?
To a place you can start undoing the damages that have been done.
They walked in silence, letting the stillness of the night flow around them. A strange hue of light followed them as they walked, parting the darkness that blocked their way. Passing through a small gap in a wall of rock, a circular space spread out before them. The rock rose up high around them, blocking off the area from the rest of the mountains. It was a bare open area with a single pillar rising high into the clouds of the sky. Stairs wrapped themselves around the thick pillar.
What is this place?
The path of discipline.
How is this going to undo the damage that's been done?
To change a fundamental part of ourselves requires discipline. So climb the stairs. Do not stop. Do not look back, or you shall fall. Now go. At the top you shall find the strength of will to do what is right and to fix your mistakes.
Making her way to the stairs, Scarlett raised her foot and placed it on the first step. Pausing, she looked back to where they had entered. Saga was gone. Swiveling her head back and forth, she searched for the hunched old man, but he was nowhere to be seen. Facing back to the stairs, she glanced up at the winding track. It stretched high into the sky. Inhaling deeply, she began the long climb up the pillar. Pain lacerated Walter's right side as he pushed away the fragmented debris of the train. A throbbing ache pounded in his head like so many mornings after a long night spent at the pub. Crawling from the overturned carriage, he saw a shadow passing through the sheets of falling snow, drawing closer to him. It was Eli.
Eli?
Eli's head snapped towards Walter. Springing over the thick snow, Eli slid to Walter's side.
Walt, are you alright?
Not any more than I was a day ago. Now help me up.
Clasping their arms together, Eli dragged Walter clear of the debris and hoisted him to his feet.
Where's Astrid?
A look of panic passed between them before they dove at the wreckage. Pushing through banks of snow and splintered wood, the two boys scoured all around.
She's over here!
Sprinting as fast as he could, Walter rushed to Eli. Wrapped in his arms was the still form of Astrid. Falling to his knees, Walter searched for signs of life.
She's breathing, but barely.
Blessings. We need to get out of here.
We don't even know where here is. So what do? Pick a direction and start walking?
No, we'll follow the tracks.
Scooping up Astrid into his arms, Walter swiveled around to get his bearings. Nodding to Eli, the two men started up the mountain towards the tracks. Walter couldn't believe what had happened. He'd lost an eye, which he thought was cool, until he tried to punch something, and missed horribly. They'd found the murderer they were looking for, who just happened to be the most powerful guy in the country, and the professor was dead. The cranky old no-fun professor was dead. Stopping in his stride, Walter looked around him. He was walking through the woods in the middle of winter, carrying his unconscious sister, while accompanied by a kid who lost his parents and is looking for a missing magical doodad, all because he agreed to rob a vault. What had his carefree life come to? A strange feeling, like acid filling his veins, churned through him. It tasted like anger, but he'd felt that before. This was something new, something strange. It made him feel agitated, like he wanted to rip the world in half, but couldn't.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Let's keep going.
Following the glinting steel tracks, they trudged through the snow for hours until far off they spotted the faint light of a village. Marching on, they grew closer to the town. Crossing over a ridge, the village came into view. It was a small town made up of only a handful of buildings, with a single main street running down the middle. Making their way down through the trees, they came to the edge of the forest and looked out at the open road. A few dimmed lights shed their light around the main road. Not a soul stirred through the whole town. Only small creatures that populated the night could be seen scurrying around the vacant street.
Looks clear to me.
Agreed. We'll stick to the shadows and head for anything that looks remotely like an inn.
We don't need to sneak in. It's the middle of the night. No one's looking.
I guess so.
Let's go. I don't know how much longer I can carry her.
Eli stared at him in mild shock.
What?
Nothing.
Stretching to his full height, Walter marched out from the shadows and headed down the main road. He had to turn his head from side to side to take in their surroundings. This loss of vision on his right side was beginning to cause problems.
Eli, move to my right side.
Why?
Because I can't see over there.
Slowing his pace, Eli disappeared from Walter's view, leaving only the soft crunch of snow as the only indication of his presence. Up ahead, a large wooden sign creaked in the midnight breeze. Handing Astrid to Eli, Walter slammed his fists into the door, rattling the whole building.
The middle of the night? What? Blessed be the land. What happened to you three?
That's a long story we don't have time for.
We're looking for a place to get out of the cold.
Why, of course. Come in.
Passing through the main room of the inn, they were led up a flight of stairs and placed in a small set of rooms. Exhaustion weakened his muscles as Eli lay Astrid down to rest on one of the beds. Slumping into a chair, Walter gazed at the random patterns of the wood floor.
Would you be able to bring us some food and some extra blankets?
Bring me a bottle of whiskey, the best you have.
Yes, I'll be right back with that.
Are you sure you should be drinking right now?
Walter didn't respond. He didn't care if he should or shouldn't be drinking. All he wanted to do was let the alcoholic nectar flow and wash away all the pain and strange feelings he had swirling around his head.
Walt, I need you to be conscious right now.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be.
I need your help. Astrid needs your help. You don't just get to escape because you feel like it.
Say whatever the heck you want. I've heard it all before.
Standing, Walter marched to the door and slammed it as he left the room. Swinging around a corner, he nearly smashed into the innkeeper and sent them down the stairs.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there.
Wiping the bottle of whiskey from her hand, Walter brushed past her and stumbled down the stairs into the main room of the inn. Scraping a chair across the floor, he sat down and pounded the bottle on the table before flicking away the cork. The caramel-colored liquid bounced and danced around the cup as he poured out a glass. Tipping it back, he let the harsh flavor slide down his throat, never letting up till the last drop fell. Pouring out another glass, he downed 3 more in quick succession.
Drinking your troubles away?
Walter caught a glimpse of the old hunched monk sitting atop a chair on the other side of the room.
This must be some really strong stuff if I'm seeing you.
Oh, my friend, you are not seeing things. I am here.
Look, it's been a long 3 days. I've nearly died twice and walked over 2 miles in the snow, so don't take it too hard if I don't believe you're actually here.
Very well.
Hopping down from his seat, the old monk hobbled his way across the room, his balding head bobbing just above the surface of the tables. Coming to Walter's side, he raised his cane and brought it flying down on Walter's arm.
What was that for?
To prove to you that I am here.
You could have just poked me.
Now where is the fun in that?
I'm not in the mood for fun.
Ah, yes, you have felt too much and let your strong, tough man persona fall an inch. You must drink your feelings away, just as you always have.
Yeah, I guess so.
Topping up his glass, Walter drew it to his lips, only to feel the cup fly from his hand, smashing against the ground. Snapping his eyes to the gruff monk, he was met by a thin smile and slitted eyes. Keeping his eyes trained on the old man, Walter grabbed the bottle of whiskey and slowly drew it to his lips. As he felt the cool glass, his eyes flashed to the bottle for a second. The bottle exploded in his hand, sending shards of glass and alcohol crashing to the floor.
What was that for?
What was what for?
Why'd you smash the bottle?
I didn't do anything.
Enough of this!
Flying from his chair, Walter gripped the collar of his robe and hefted him into the air.
What are you doing here?
I am here to help a friend.
Well, your friend's upstairs, so go talk to him and leave me alone.
I am not here for Eli. I am here for you.
Why? I'm not the one who got his mentor shot right in front of him.
But you did, though you don't admit it. Jones was your mentor just as much as he was Eli's.
No, he wasn't. I never talked with the guy.
You didn't have to. Jones guided you as a group. At every turn, he did whatever he thought was right and would keep you all together.
Why would he do that?
Because he saw himself and his friends in all of you, and he wanted you to turn out differently than they had. He also saw much of himself in you.
How so?
If you could let me down, I will explain.
Releasing his grip, Walter watched as the monk fell to the floor, landing without a buckle in the knees. Pushing back a chair, the old man hopped onto the seat. Resetting his own chair, Walter sat across from the monk.
You were saying?
Jones saw aspects of himself and his friends in each of you. Scarlett has much of a father in her. Eli has aspects of both his parents, but he leans towards his father's strong-headedness. Astrid has the same caring and hunger for justice as did Amy McCain. And you, my friend, are not so different in character than our dear friend, Professor Jones was.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there. I'm not a snotty old cranky professor kind of guy.
Neither was Jones. At your age, Jones was a free-willed man, thought he could take on the world, just with his word and wit, outmatch any obstacle with a bit of determination and some tactical muscle, and he loved a glass of whiskey, never thought twice about a plan or idea, and too often he would take those around him for granted. It wasn't till after they were gone that he realized his mistake.
I don't see where you're going with this.
You do not realize the support and friendship that surround you. You are not sober long enough to take in the blessings you have. Years of drinking away every pain, every success, has made you unfamiliar with your feelings. Even now I feel the confusion, the anger inside you. You don't understand it. You don't know why it is there.
Tell me, oh so knowledgeable one, why do I feel like garbage?
Because you are feeling loss and guilt, and you don't know where to put it. So you wash it away with a bottle of whiskey, as much as you don't admit it. Jones's death has affected you, and you feel guilty for not having tried to do more.
Why would I feel guilty for that?
Because you care for these people. Eli, Jones, Scarlett, who you could have let dangle and fall from the train, but, despite your mistrust of her, chose to save instead. You have grown to care for them just as much as you have cared for your sister, which I will say is your one redeeming quality.
The last time I let myself feel anything, it got thrown back in my face.
And you had to leave your home because of it.
Smashing his fist to the table, Walter stood to his full height.
How do you know all of this? How do you know anything about me?
I know because I see it in your face. I saw how at every turn you shut yourself off, whirled around you, and wanted to destroy the place you considered your exile. You didn't want to admit that you care for these people, that your life matters to someone, that it matters at all.
It doesn't matter. It's only brought other people pain.
Because you have let it. You have a chance for it to bring joy and peace to a tired, confused soul. Instead of drowning your feelings, use them. Use them in the fight to come. I gave you the ring to save your life and show you that life is precious, and it is up to us to use that gift to help others in ways that they cannot help themselves.
What does that even mean?
That is for you to find out. Now come, follow me.
Hopping down from his chair, the old monk waddled to the door, pushing it open, and disappeared into the night. Shrugging his shoulders, Walter followed after him. Passing through the door, he was surprised to be greeted by a small circular space surrounded by high stone walls. Gazing into the sky, he saw the high mountain peaks in the distance. Rising from the ground before him was a large pillar with a spiral staircase wrapping around it.
Man, I drank way too much. How does this help me to use my life to help others? Am I supposed to climb it and jump or what?
To truly be able to help others, we must first climb the pillar of discipline and find the strength of will to carry the struggles of others and your own.
That still doesn't tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Looking down, Walter found that the monk was gone. Turning all which ways, he found no sign of him.
Where did the little rascal go? Oh well. He said something about climbing, so I guess that's what I'll do.
Placing his foot firmly on the first step, he glanced around one more time before beginning his journey up the pillar. Pain pulsed through his side as he marched up, step after step, climbing higher into the clouds. Looking out, he saw the peaks of the mountains come to eye level with him. Gazing up, he saw the last step. Taking a deep breath, he bounced from one foot to the other as he ascended to the top of the pillar. Cresting the top, he froze in shock at what he found. A long shaft stuck out from the top of the pillar, with an eloquently sculpted hammerhead of pure, glinting steel sitting atop of it. Gold lines raced from the four corners of the hammer, twisting into a circle around a quartz star embedded in the side. A strange feeling washed over him. It was a calling, telling him to come closer and take it. Take control of his will and the will of others. It drew him closer. Reaching out, he grasped its sleek shaft. Electricity surged through his veins, twisting around his heart, wrapping around his brain. The energy let out a pulse shooting through the air. He felt it all. Near and far, everyone's emotions flowing like the ocean currents. Fear, anticipation, awe, anger, love, jealousy, joy, all of it bombarded his mind. Looking around, he saw strings of glittering colors twisting and flowing through the air, going off in all directions. Some were faint, others strong and easy to feel. It all stabbed into his mind, cracking away at it. In a flash, it all collapsed around him, dissipating in a puff of glittering dust. The energy dropped away, flowing to another place. Glanced down, he recoiled in shock. Standing just across from him was the slender form of Scarlett. Her eyes glimmered with the same mixture of colors he had just seen. She seemed lost in them, like she neither saw nor felt anything else.
Scarlett?
The light vanished from her eyes, and she stared in bewilderment at the man standing before her.
Walter, what are you doing here?
I was going to ask you the same question.
You first.
That weird monk from the monastery showed up and started talking about a bunch of spiritual life stuff.
You saw Saga?
Yeah, did you?
Yes. He led me to this place and told me to change a fundamental part of ourselves requires discipline. So climb the stairs, then vanished.
He did the same thing to me, though he said something about finding the strength of will or whatever.
I'm officially confused.
You wouldn't be the only one.
Wood and stone wrapped around them, blocking out the starry sky and closing them into the dim room of the inn. Snapping his head around, Walter spotted Eli, who was standing, holding his flashlight and shining it into their eyes.
I definitely drank too much.
Scarlett, what are you doing here?
Scarlett's hand slipped from the hammer as she backed away from Walter.
Eli?
How did you find us? Is that the hammer? What's going on here?
I was lost in the woods. Then I was talking to Saga, then climbed a pillar, and now I am here.
You expect me to believe that? Saga is miles away.
Eli, she's telling the truth.
When did you start trusting a Defoe?
I'm only trusting her because the same thing happened to me.
Walt, you were drinking. I can't trust your word.
Then trust mine.
Whirling around, the light from Eli's flashlight fell on the old monk, who was perched in the same seat where he had appeared to Walter. The shaggy, fur-covered goat was sitting curled up next to the monk.
Saga? How are you here?
I am a man of many talents, but I am never too far from those who need help.
Well, we could have used your help earlier.
Maybe, maybe not. We will never know now.
Saga, we found my parents' murderer.
Yes, Wilfred Defoe has revealed himself at last.
Wait, you knew? If you know that, then you know about...
I do. Jones is gone, and you are all injured and confused.
I'm not confused. I'm angry.
We are often angry and confused at the same time, for that is the nature of those emotions. But first, come, let us go to Astrid, and I will explain everything.
Hopping down from his chair, Saga hobbled his way towards the stairs with Rabbi, the goat, following close behind him. Eyeing each other, they all followed after the monk, with Eli leading the way. Tense silence filled the air as they filed into the room. A look of concern fell over Scarlett's face as she spotted Astrid lying still on the mattress.
Is she all right?
We're not sure. She's been unconscious since the train crashed.
Rabbi leaped to the bed, curling up alongside Astrid. Withdrawing a small vial filled with rich red liquid from his robes, Saga popped off its cork and let a single red drop fall between Astrid's lips. Her body flinched as the drop slid down her throat. A gasp escaped her as her chest rose and fell in even turns as she began to breathe deeply. Her eyes fluttered open, looking here and there she took in her surroundings. Coming to her side, Eli rested his hand gently on her shoulder.
Hey,
What happened?
the train derailed and you were knocked out.
Her eyes moved around the room, falling on the dark raven hair of Scarlett. Seething anger filled her eyes as her face crinkled into hard lines of hatred. Digging her elbows into the mattress, she pushed herself up and faced Scarlett.
What are you doing here, liar?
I never lied to you about my father.
How do you expect us to believe you?
I don't.
Then why'd you stick around?
Because I told her to.
Astrid's eyes snapped to the stocky monk.
Saga,
Hello, Astrid.
how did you get here?
So predictable you four are. My means of travel is not important right now. What is coming to terms with what has happened.
And how do you expect us to do that?
By showing you the truth. Give me the key.
Retrieving the key from his pocket, Eli dropped it into Saga's wrinkled hand. Rabbi hopped off the bed and sat before the monk. Extending his hand, Saga held the key between the goat's horns. Removing his hand, the key stayed in place, floating between the sleek white horns.
Now give me the ring and the hammer.
Walter handed the hammer to the monk. Slipping the golden band from his finger felt like pulling the very air he breathed from his lungs. A pulse of energy shot through him as the ring slid off his finger and into the monk's slender hand. Placing the ring on his own finger, Saga closed his eyes and gripped the hammer tightly as he slammed its shaft to the floor. A tingle shot through Eli's body, growing stronger as it coursed through him. It felt as if his soul was being torn away from his body. Saga's black eyes shot open as blinding light shot out from the key, shredding the world around them to dust. The harsh winds and soft white of the void he had seen so long ago wrapped around them. It began to shift and change into a large hall, but not just any hall, the Hall of Denali back in the capital. It was different from the one Eli had seen. The depictions of Joseph Cotton and several other details were missing. A tall, towering man dressed in a long black coat fringed with gold looked out over the harbor. Thick, raven black hair was slicked back behind his ears.
Is that my father?
You wanted to see me, Alexander?
A young man, dressed in a fine white robe, strutted into the hall, joining the other man as he stared out at the harbor.
Yes, you've heard of my father's decision to separate the relic and divide it among me and my siblings.
I have. He asked me personally about the matter.
And you agreed with him?
I did not. I cautioned him against it. We don't know how to properly do it, and I don't think separating it is what the four-winged eagle intended.
He's a fool. No relic with that power should be divided. The Blessed One clearly said that the leader needs all the gifts to lead. And if I am to be the next chief, I can't do it with just a gift of time. I need to know the truth. I need to have the strength of will to do what is necessary. I need to be able to heal, not just live a long time.
Are you sure your father will make you the next chief?
If he doesn't, he's an even bigger fool. Saga, I've seen visions of the sky opening up and the city burning. What am I going to do if I can't tell the truth of my visions? How will I know how to prevent it? And I can't trust Nikolai to tell me the truth. If I am to lead, I need the united relic.
In a flash, the scene disintegrated into ash.
Your father, Alexander, was plagued by many dreams, some of which came true, but most did not. He was filled with misguided ideas that he was the savior that was going to save the nation, like Denali once did. But when Joseph Cotton went through with dividing the relic, Alexander was consumed with a horrible rage and hatred of his father. He fled the capital that night, vowing he would return and fix his father's mistakes. He was gone for many years exploring the world, looking for other artifacts, even going to the old country, the land our people once called home, but he found none. And as the years went by, his ambitions and greed for the relic grew, devouring him and twisting the once bright man I called a friend into a stranger and a monster. After 30 years, he returned to his homeland and founded a secret organization meant to solely follow and worship him. Joseph Cotton was now in his ripe old age and dying, wishing to leave this world at peace with his children. Joseph called them all to the capital.
A torrent of dust and debris swirled around them, forming into a large chamber with a bed situated at its center. A pale husk of a man lay almost unnoticeable in the sheets. Alexander swept through the door and marched to his father's side. He hadn't aged a day since he had received the ring.
I came as soon as I heard.
Alexander, I wanted you to know I never stopped loving you. That's why I denied you the name of chief. It would have destroyed you.
How wrong you were.
Silver steel flashed through the air before diving into the old man's chest. Joseph Cotton let out a small grunt before lying motionless in the covers.
Denying me my rightful title destroyed every fiber of my being. It was the worst punishment you could have ever given me.
He murdered his already dying father, just so he could get the satisfaction of driving a blade into his heart. He then went on to massacre his siblings and everyone else in the Capitol building. When I arrived, I found the steps drenched in blood. The bodies of guards lay strewn about the main hall, and there he was, with the corpses of his siblings lying at his feet. In his hands, he held the 4 relics.
What have you done? I did what had to be done.
You killed your own family.
How is that what needed to be done?
When he turned to face me, I couldn't believe what I saw. Blood was smeared across his face, and his eyes were filled with a madness that burned like the fires of hell. In that moment I knew what I had to do. Calling upon the four-winged eagle, I prepared myself for the fight to come.
You've gone too far, Alexander. You must stop. And if I don't, what are you going to do? Try and stop me? Ha! I'd like to see you try. The power of the Blessed One flows through me.
I will do what I must. Our battle was vicious and terrible. He battled me both physically and mentally, trying to use the hammer's ability to overpower me, and he nearly did. I would have died that night if the sky had not opened up and a ball of fire descend from the heavens, smashing through the roof of the hall and throwing Alexander to the ground. Rising from its ashes was a small goat with the white-hot fire burning in its eyes.
Rabbi?
Yes. Together we defeated Alexander, bound him in chains, and locked him in the deepest prison we could find. After that, we returned to the capital and created a plan to hide the relics in places where no one would ever find them. The key we hid away in the northern mountains. The hammer we placed atop a pillar of stone. The flower of healing we placed in the depths of the harbor, beneath the ruins of the old capital. And I kept the ring so that I might be there to see Alexander's last days and protect the missing pieces. After that, I wiped my mind of the pieces' locations, and in the event that the relic was ever needed, we bound the knowledge of their location in a journal and hid it away in one of Joseph Carton's secret vaults, where it stayed until it was discovered nearly 100 years later.
How is my father even alive today if this all happened hundreds of years ago?
Your father received the ring when he was 20 years old and held it continuously for 30 years. And because the relic was not in its natural state, its effects began to bind to him, nearly stopping his aging altogether. Now as time went on, the world forgot the events of that day. But I did not. After 40 years had come and gone, news reached me that Alexander had died, and I retreated to the monastery to watch over the nation and the secrets of the relic. Then I heard that an ancient journal had been found with reference to the lost relic. At once I went to the capital and found two bright young students.
My parents.
Yes, I knew I could not let this expedition go on unsupervised. So I became their mentor and tested their character. After a long time, I found them to be worthy of the relic's gifts, and figured since Alexander was dead, that maybe it was time to reunite the relic. So I guided them through their research, until one day I discovered that this Wilfred Defoe was none other than my old friend Alexander. I knew he would never stop looking for it. After long thought, I concluded that the relic must return to the Blessed One, for if Defoe retrieved it, the world would burn. So I told your parents everything. Immediately, they cut ties with him and went on the run, retreating to the monastery, where I hoped we could find the missing pieces and destroy the relic once and for all.
Why would you want to destroy it and not just kill Alexander, then reunite the relic?
Because the relic was a perfect gift given by the Blessed One that had been fractured by man's imperfect hands. In that fracturing, the world was wounded, and the relic would now only be a temptation for tyrannical men. And as we have seen in the civil war between the Marian and Tars, the blessings of the relic become a curse when in the hands of a madman. We spent months looking for the other relic, but we were too late. Alexander had found us. I was unable to stop him from killing your parents. All I could do was prevent the key and the ring from falling into his hands. But unfortunately, he took the journal.
How come he didn't use the journal to find the other pieces?
Because he couldn't. To use the journal, one must face Robbie's judgment and be found worthy.
That's why he attacked me in the Vault of Secrets. He was discerning whether or not I was worthy.
Yes.
The void vanished, and the beams and walls of the inn returned around them.
That also explains why Defoe asked me to look into it, instead of just going after it himself.
That was his original plan, but then you and I stopped Martin from taking it.
The day of the trial. The man in the office was Martin?
Yes. I was told he would be there, and when I saw you rush off to go get the key, I chased after you to try and stop you.
So then why save me? Why not just let Martin kill me and be done with it?
Because I do not share my father's enjoyment of killing those that get in his way.
I find that hard to believe, considering you are so proficient with weapons.
Just because I know how to use them doesn't mean I like to kill with them.
Okay, so after the attack, why not just do his own expedition? Why would he ask me?
Because he knew he could control you and Jones. Jones was terrified of him, and all he had to do was offer you the chance at revenge.
It sounds to me like he was playing a sick, twisted game just for the heck of it.
The more I think about it, the more I believe he was. And I followed along with it like the sheep that I am.
To be fair, no one ever expects their parents to be a narcissistic madman until it's too late.
Easy for you to say. You don't have to live with the fact that you helped him, and were willing to die just to make him proud.
Fair.
We'd all do terrible things for the ones we love.
Yeah, I guess so. But I don't love him anymore. Not after he killed Jones.
And Natalia.
Scarlett flinched as Eli said Natalia's name.
Natalia is dead?
Yes, she was murdered.
By who?
By your brother.
The blood drained from Scarlett's face as she fell back into a chair. She knew that it was her fault. She'd told Martin about what Jones had said.
If you swear you didn't know about your father's involvement in the McCain's murder, maybe I'll trust you.
I swear. The only thing I ever knew was that we were looking for the relic to save the nation. That's all I knew. That's all I was ever told.
Astrid looked questioningly at Walter.
If she's willing to put this sucker in the ground, then I trust her.
All eyes fell on Eli, who stood staring into the flickering flames of the fireplace.
I don't think I'll ever be able to trust you. Not anytime soon. But we'll need all the help we can get if we're going to do this.
What exactly are we going to do?
We're gonna find and destroy this relic. Then we're going to kill this son of a...
you